Hey y'all, Pi here, and we are back in our life beginnings and always. Just want to say I'm so sorry that I had to cut the last episode so short. I haven't gotten around to editing it yet, but I know it's definitely going to be very, very short, and I am so sorry for that. There's nothing I could have done about it. Monday was just a mess. Last time I kind of left it on a bit of a cliffhanger, which, again, not ideal, but again, I had to, because just life. But I think Cove said something about being glad to be here in a very vague sense, so I'm gonna say, so am I. You loved him, fully and completely you did. His smile widened, and he pressed his body against yours, resting his head into the crook of your neck, stroking the back of your head with his fingers. Aww. You tightened your grip on him and let your head fall against his shoulder. The night drifted on. You held each other tight, swaying to the music as if you were the only ones in the room. Cove was sweet the entire time, his warmth brushing against your skin as he whispered words of affection in your ear. He was extremely good at making you feel special. You couldn't have hidden your blissful smile, even if you wanted to. The party eventually started to wind down, and at last it came to an end. When the main lights turned on, you blinked against the brightness of them, making sure you still had Cove in your sights. One final speaker came up to the podium on the stage, thanking all the guests for coming and wishing everyone a good night. It was bittersweet to see it come to a close. Your time with Cove here was precious. At least the memories could be brought with you. Giving the space one more look, you walked together with Cove out to the parking lot. The other guests were doing the same, so you got stuck in a bit of a crowd, though Cove was so tall you could always see him, and it was easy enough not to get separated. Yeah, I'm that person in my relationship. I am very, very tall. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. Which actually, thinking about it, you guys would have seen a picture of me at the end of the previous episode of this, so you can kind of gauge my rough height based on how much of the door I take up. Anyway. The parking lot itself was quite big, and even more noticeable with fewer cars blocking the view. It took a little while to actually locate Cove's car across its expanse. Relatable. Eventually you found it, and the two of you bundled inside the vehicle and buckled up. The trip home was quiet as you both silently reflected back on the experience. The event had been the biggest night of the year for Orca, and now it was all over, just like that. Outside your window, the surroundings soon became familiar, and you found yourselves back in your neighborhood. Cove pulled the car into his driveway and put it in park before letting out a relieved breath. Home sweet home. Yeah. After climbing out of the car, you walked slowly down to the road, Cove coming over to stand beside you. You stopped in the middle of the street, right between your house and his, and turned to him, finding him in the process of opening his mouth to speak. Oh? Strangely, he clamped his lips together, as though he had suddenly thought better of it. No. Tell me what you're gonna say. Don't clam up on me now. That was quite a night. Cove let out a breathy laugh, nodding in agreement. Yeah, it was. Of course we're going in for the kiss. How could we end this night without a kiss? You kissed him goodnight. Needing to be close again before the night ended, you pressed your lips against his in a gentle kiss. He smiled as you separated, running his fingers over the side of your face.
Night.
Night, Joy. With a last wispy smile, he left towards his front door. Figuring you shouldn't linger in the street for much longer, you crossed the remainder of the road and did the same. Yeah, don't have your cute romantic moments in the middle of the street. Somebody will run you over. Maybe not in this area, since it seems to be a pretty quiet area, but like, generally speaking, anything happening in the middle of the street, bad idea. When you reached your house, you pulled out your keys and stuck them in the door, trying your best to be silent about it. Opening the door a crack, you turned back and looked at Cove from over your shoulder. Your eyebrows lifted in surprise to see he was doing the same, holding his front door open but waiting for you to go inside before he did. Aww, cute boy. You shared an amused smile before you both stepped into your own houses, locking the door behind you. It was quite late, so everyone else was already asleep. As quiet as a mouse, you tiptoed up to your bedroom and changed out of your formal clothes into your pajamas. Now that you were finally home, you were exhausted. You brushed your teeth and got ready for bed in darkness before crawling under the covers and letting out a heavy breath. It was still strange to think about how that was it. The build-up to the event had felt like so much, now it was completely behind you. Yeah, that's kind of how it always is. Anytime you have any sort of long-term project or like preparing for some big party or event, the build-up hits a point where it feels like this is the way it's always going to be. You're always going to have that anticipation, so that when you get to the payoff, you're left going, well, now what? What do I do? There's nothing to work towards anymore. It's over. It's part of the reason why I'm going for another mini-series next year and going for another KOTOR LP on Christmas. Just every time you finish something big, you need something big to look forward to again. Just keep yourself moving forward. I feel like in some ways doing this, I am learning about myself at the same time as you guys are learning about me. We're just gonna move on. No more introspection. Your mind was busy with rapid yet muddled thoughts as you faded closer and closer to sleep. As unconsciousness creeped up on you, you felt more content. It was a big deal, but there would be more in the future. You could accept what it had been, and you could dream about what you'd get to experience next. Yeah, exactly that. That's what I was going for. Damn it, Cove! And then you were taken away from dreams right back into reality by a sound. Your eyebrows pinched together, fully unprepared to be part of the waking world again. The day was over, and it had been an eventful one. But you heard another noise. It was a tapping. Fucking Cove, damn it. Your eyes flew open. The window. There was a tapping that came from your window. Cove Holden. Honestly, I was kind of expecting this from the moment they parted ways, so I'm gonna say you rushed over to him. You tumbled out of bed, taking your blanket with you. You left it on the floor when you scampered over to the window. You saw through the glass that Cove's eyebrows were raised, and you suddenly realized that in your rush you hadn't taken care to be quiet. He had probably heard you crash to the floor. Oops. But that wasn't the matter at hand. You flung open your window and faced him completely, with nothing separating the two of you any longer. You had not been surprised to find Cove awkwardly crouched on your window ledge. However, you were taken aback to see that he was a little overdressed. Cove hadn't changed out of his formal clothes. Boy! You went home and you didn't even change? You also noticed that he was perched clumsily. You didn't know if it was because he was trying to keep his fancy clothes clean or if he felt weird about something. His body was too stiff and awkward. Boy. Cove smiled sheepishly. Hi, Joy. Boy. What the fuck? It's nice to see you, Romeo. You moved aside and let him climb inside. He cautiously stepped down by stretching his legs over. Strangely, he didn't use his hands for support. It was clear to you now. He was holding something. Boy. What are you holding? When he was safely on his feet, he briefly checked out his clothes, twisting around to see the back of his pants. He caught you looking and shrugged.
I mean...
I did go home after the event, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to settle down, so I just walked back out. Boy! I needed fresh air and time away from everything. He paused for a moment and raised his clasped together hands where you could see them. But then something happened, and, Well, so, I have something I want to show you. Cove grinned like a child and gently unfurled his fingers, not being able to keep you in suspense for even a minute. Carefully sitting inside was a tiny yellow light. It blinked off and then on again. A firefly. Aww! Delicately, he moved his hands closer so that you could see the creature better. They're back. He closed his eyes, his smile now faintly illuminated by his insect companion. Remember the first time I caught one? I always will. I could barely manage anything because of the neon pink cast I was stuck with all summer. This child. He's so fucking cute. Why is he so fucking cute? You were still stunned by what was happening, but couldn't help snickering when Cove did. It was thanks to you that I finally held a firefly in my own hand. You're welcome, Cove. Honestly, I didn't think I'd see them this year. I don't know why. It's just they were kind of late, and I guess I've been worrying about a lot of stuff lately. You could tell that the firefly genuinely lifted his spirits. He seemed at peace, and he wanted to share that with you. The fact that his first thought after discovering the fireflies was to come over and celebrate the joy with you made you suddenly feel very cherished. He is such a sweet boy. He's too pure for this world. Cove opened his eyes, but he looked away, not meeting yours.
It's nice.
It's really nice, I think. Even if the fireflies disappear for a while, it doesn't mean they're really gone. They'll come back. I can see them again. I don't know if that bit of audio distortion picked up on the recording, but we're just gonna move on. You smiled. And then you looked at the firefly keenly. There was definitely something poetic about them. You felt a warmth in your heart. Cove looked at your face, his smile now fragile. It makes me think about the two of us. We're together, then we say goodbye, and then we're together again. Day after day, year after year, and even if our time apart gets longer, that doesn't make it forever.
Joy.
I'll always be there, whenever you want to see me. Aww. Aww. My heart is so warm now. You were so in love with him. There was nothing else you could think then, and he needed to know. Your heart started to pound in your ears, and all you could hear was blood rushing. You looked at Cove and found yourself fixated. The only thing you were aware of was your rapid pulse and him. It was as if your entire relationship was playing over your mind, every step that led you here. Everything from the first night you met to how you started as little kids who were good friends and grew even closer. To the first time you saw fireflies together, to the first time he snuck in your room, and then every other moment you shared. All of it came back to you. Cove's expression had turned curious as you left him waiting, wordless. He tilted his head in question. His lips parted to speak, but you went first. Let's be direct. I love you. With your confession, the world stopped for a second. Cove froze. No! Why are you crying? No! That was not the reaction I was hoping for! No! Oh. Oh. Then, as if your words had turned a faucet, tears began to fall down Cove's cheeks. He silently mouthed something, but you couldn't make out a word. No! I'm so sorry! Why are you crying? What the hell? Okay, I need to control myself. Cove? You stepped closer and closer, removing the distance between the two of you. He covered his mouth with a hand. He must have forgotten about the firefly resting there, and it flew off into the night with a twinkle. He used his other hand to shakily reach over and interlace his fingers with yours. He gripped you tightly as he started sobbing harder. No! I don't do well with crying people! Stop it! IRL, I'm fucking breaking down and sobbing my eyes out. I do not do well with people crying. But we're gonna say You wiped his tears. Gently, you took your free hand and wiped his tears away. Let's continue being direct. I love you, Cove. Cove removed the hand from his mouth and used it to hold the back of your head. He brought your face to him and your foreheads brushed together. He looked straight into your eyes. His voice trembled, it cracked, and it shook. This was raw, straight from Cove's heart. I love you. He closed his eyes tightly and repeated himself, but now he could say it firmly. I love you. Aww. His aqua eyes sparkled when he opened them again. Fresh tears poured out with an outburst of emotion. Stop crying, please! I can't take it.
Sorry.
Joy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't get it together. It's just, I tried so much to love you quietly, secretly, and that being it. But I really wanted you to feel the same. I wanted you to love me back. I wanted to hear you say it. Boy! What part of my actions towards you made you think that I wouldn't be whatever. Teenagers are dumb. I must remind myself, teenagers are stupid when it comes to relationships. And like, I was that stupid teenager, so like, I am not above you guys. I just kept thinking, what if you didn't? Maybe what I felt was too much, and I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't know what to do. But I didn't want to put any of that on you either. Boy. You weren't doing something bad. Everything you do is right and wonderful. Boy.
I'm always like this.
It wasn't your fault I had to be like that. I'm just like that. He leaned in closer, hiding his face from view, his lips trailing over your ear. He whispered, "But you love me. You love me." He moved his head back so his forehead was centered on yours, and then he closed his eyes. He shook. The hand you still held was trembling. Damn. Okay, I wasn't... This is a little bit more intense than my first confession. We're not getting into that. I'm so sorry. I'm really always like this. You kissed him. You pulled him into you, kissing his lips. He returned it desperately. Cove managed to bring a fragile smile onto his face. He was still shaking, but there was something decided about him now.
I love you.
I love you, Joy. I love you. He repeated it more, as if to make up for all the times he didn't let himself say it before. As he spoke, his tears dried up and his breathing became more even. The reaffirmation helped him calm down. Thank you for telling me. Cove's smile was bolder, even as his voice wavered, and he ducked his head with a childish shyness. He clearly fought against getting emotional again. His watery eyes, his mussed hair, the tears still drying on his cheeks. You loved him so much. It was only the truth. I love you. Should we keep this PG or should we go for it? I'm going with option B. If it gets a little bit too much for YouTube, we'll backtrack and option A will become canon, but like, I want to see option B. I feel like I need to justify myself, but like, I'm playing a dating sim, laughing my ass off, screaming about a fictional boy. I feel like I've gone so far past the point of explaining myself that I shouldn't even be bothered at this point. You really wanted to touch him a lot. Oh damn. Oh damn. There's so many options. Don't mind me, guys. I'm just screaming internally, trying not to scream out loud because I do have neighbors, and I'm pretty sure they can hear me. I wish I knew whether or not I get to do multiple, because right now I am between many kisses and going for the wall. We'll start with many kisses. If I get another chance, I'll go for the wall. You kissed all over his face. You moved your face over to his cheek and gave it a nice smooch. You smiled and then planted another on the tip of his nose. You kissed across his forehead, moved on to gently brush your lips against his eyelids and then the corners of his mouth. He made small please noises and wrapped his arms around your lower back. He pressed himself even closer against you. From personal experience, like, the mini face kisses feels very, very nice. Both giving and receiving. Pro tip, though. Don't ever do that unless it's been invited. If you're not in a relationship with that person and, like, you don't have that kind of relationship, just don't. Start slow. Fuck yes! We get to go again! We're going for the wall! You pressed him up against the wall. Then you stepped forward with purpose and pressed your hands against his shoulders. You kept walking. His eyes widened, but he let you lead him, stepping back at the prompting. Cove squeaked when he made contact with the wall. You stared straight ahead into his flushed face. Cove's body was tense being in such a position, but you knew with complete certainty that it wasn't in a bad way. You could feel one of his knees rubbing against the inside of your leg encouragingly. Oh, damn, Cove. Let's go for the neck kisses. You kissed his neck. You nuzzled up against him. You could hear his breathing picking up. You kissed across the exposed part of his neck. He made a quick gasp and let it out as a long sigh. While you busied yourself over his neck, he reached down to stroke your thighs slowly. Whoa, okay, we're getting there. My tea is done. I need more tea. I'm gonna... I need to calm down. This fucking tease. You moved your hands down his chest. You brought one hand to the nape of his neck while you ran the other along his chest. His shirt wrinkled, but neither of you cared. His body was firm to the touch. He kissed your ear long enough to heat it up and down to your jawline, letting the warmth spread while you touched him. I'm trying so fucking hard not to scream. We're going for the butt! He grabbed his butt. You slid your hand down his back, skimming the muscle underneath. You could feel them tighten the lower you got. You paused at the base of his spine, fingers tapping with intention, but giving him time to voice disagreement with your course of action. He did quietly murmur something. It's okay, I don't mind. I mean, it's not just that. I want you to... He couldn't muster the last word, but still feeling validated, you let your hand cup his butt and squeeze it. Cove took a sharp breath. Joy. His voice was laced with embarrassment, but not dissatisfaction. You kissed his lips. You began to pull Cove into a kiss, and he welcomed it. Both of his hands cradled your head gently. He was full of sweetness for you, and eagerly you took it. You only separated when you needed air. You huffed, getting oxygen back into your lungs, all the while grinning at your boyfriend. Cove beamed at you and then kissed you back once more, a brief but solid stamp of his affection. Then Cove carefully rested his hands on your shoulders and looked away. He took a few deep breaths as you kept you there. Oh, okay. We don't get to... I think Cove's about to take the reins. I did not make nearly enough tea for this. You could tell he was as worked up as he could manage for tonight. That was alright. You were feeling rather satisfied too. You smiled a little and tried to slow your own racing heart. Damn! Cove said, nope! That's enough! That's enough! I need to calm down, personally. Just bring that shit back down to a 1. You couldn't help thinking about how you were certain that you wanted to spend your life with him, and you told him as much. I hope we get to spend our whole lives together. Cove's expression crumpled again. He wasn't able to tamp down the newest wave of emotion. His eyes watered once more, and he took a few heavy breaths. I hope so too. We could be together always. Have a place of our own. And kids? Also pets? Do you think so? His eyes widened at the picture you were painting. Cove seemed more than a little overwhelmed. Being a dad, the idea of it intimidated him. I'm sure you'd be a great father, Cove. Yeah, he would be so sweet as a dad. He would be the kind of dad that, like, takes care of the kids while the other spouse is away, and like does the housework and like keeps track of them, and he would be such a good dad. He would be such a good dad. He would be a sweet dad. Dad Cove. Dad Cove needs to exist. Cove wasn't able to find the words. Instead, he squeezed his eyes shut and nodded resolutely. Your heart lifted. He was anxious, but he wanted a family with you. You felt warm being able to talk about this openly. You liked to imagine the life you could have together, and now you could do it with him. He rubbed at his scarred arm bashfully. You know, I thought having to grow up for real was gonna be so hard. I didn't know if I even could, but you... Well, maybe it won't be that impossible. Aw.
So...
I mean, I better make sure it's not, huh? I'm looking forward to it. Aw. Finally, he was able to laugh softly. The tears were nothing but salty remnants on his cheeks. He brightened up as if finally able to process the absolute joy of tonight in full. You felt good too, and took a little more time together to simply exist in the new dynamics you had stepped into. Cove looked into your eyes with a soft, slightly shy expression. There was hope in his smile. He's so fucking cute. I keep saying this. He's cute. He's adorable. Look at this squish. Look at this precious boy. Do you want to go to the hill with me? I bet there's still fireflies. IRL, fuck off. Do not mess with my sleep. But, let's go. Cove brightened. He was practically bouncing at the thought of a secret excursion before he suddenly became bashful. So how should we leave? We could just try the door. We don't have to do the window thing, but maybe that'd bother your family? You both chuckled at how awkward it would be if your mom's, or worse, Liz, saw you going on a midnight firefly catching trip. You'd be sure to avoid that. Let's live a little. Let's go out the window. You could leave from your window. Let's go through the window. Cove nodded in understanding. You grabbed some shoes and readied yourself for an adventure. You were glad that there was no way you'd run into another soul outside. Cove would be way overdressed, and you were still in your pajamas. Or excuse me, your jammies. You let Cove go first. He stepped back on the ledge as you carefully followed. He shuffled along, and soon you reached the garage. You planned to use the fence from there to reach the ground. Cove climbed down to the fence. He wobbled once, but he made it without an issue. He leaned against the fence and projected hushed words up to where you were waiting.
Are you okay?
Do you want help? Catch me! You nodded yes. You got to the edge and let Cove spot your descent. He grabbed you about halfway down and brought you to rest firmly on the ground. Cove gave you an encouraging smile, but neither of you risked speaking yet. You briskly snuck behind the house and up to the old white poppy hill. And Cove was right. The entire hill was lit up, insects twinkling here and there with their pale yellow light. Cove let out a contented sigh, finally able to relax in full. He shrugged further up the hill to better enjoy the view. You walked along as well, letting yourself be surrounded by the twinkling display. Then, without warning, Cove plopped onto his back. He paid no mind to smacking his formal attire in the grass. You put an arm under his head and stretched the rest of his he put an arm under his head and stretched the rest of his limbs out. He was clearly getting quite comfortable in the dirt there. You laid down in the grass. You sat down first and then fell back. You could see the stars when you looked up at the night sky. Then you snuggled against Cove. He was warm in contrast to the chilly ground. Cove cuddled closer in turn, tucking his arms up near your shoulders. I wonder if Dad will be mad about the grass stains. Bit late for that. He tugged at the collar of his shirt. He didn't sound concerned, just idly curious. At least they're dark. If you're lucky, you won't be able to tell. His smile bent a little, and it went silent between you. The only sounds were the rustling of bugs in the breeze, and the faraway crashes of waves on the sea. You couldn't help but reflect on what had happened only a brief time earlier. Between this and your room, this almost felt like a different world. Was it even real? What happened between you two? You could almost be convinced it wasn't, and that you had never actually stopped dreaming. You stole a glance at Cove. He caught you and blushed. That little reddening reassured you. Cove remembered the same as you. What you had was real. You challenged him to a rolling race down the hill. I want to race you down the hill. Whoever can roll the fastest wins. Cove chuckled and crossed his knees casually. How would he even tell who won? We'd both be rolling. We could shout it, or maybe we just do a quick check for the other as soon as we reach the bottom. He tilted his head towards you and uncrossed his legs. Well, I'm already in position. Let's do it. With a smile, you wondered if he had a disadvantage in his formal wear. Then again, it wasn't like pajamas were made for rolling either. And even though you were already on the ground, you twisted the way you were settled to be more prepared. Then you stared each other down. It was almost time. This was serious business.
Right.
You know the rules. On the count of 3. Nodding, you tucked your limbs in tight and prepared yourself. 1, 2, 3. Go! You hurled your body sideways, and you could only imagine Cove was doing the same. You were rolling, and then the hill was suddenly over. It felt like a much shorter trip than it used to. You stuck your dizzied head into the air and locked eyes with Cove. He was down there already as well. Both of you were breathing heavily with satisfied expressions creeping onto your faces. Looks like we tied. Cove looked amused and unsuccessfully hid a life behind a hand. Yeah, that was a tie. Cove dropped back to his side and rolled the rest of the way over to you. Upon arrival, he reached out and pulled you into an embrace. You couldn't stop yourself from laughing and relaxed into the hug. The hour grew late and the fireflies mostly dispersed until only a few stragglers remained. Then, even they blinked out of sight, leaving you alone with Cove and your thoughts. Cove stole a second to release the words that had been filling his head during the quiet. I love you, Joy. You felt a great deal of happiness. Cove's expression was completely open, honest, and full of sincerity. He meant every word. He truly loved you. No matter how much it didn't seem real yet, it was. It felt as though this was a night that would never end, but you knew it would have to, all too soon. You were only grateful to have been part of it. These were moments to truly treasure. You'd never let yourself forget them. Alright. I am just coming up on 40 minutes, so I'm not going to be able to finish the next one, but I am at least going to start it, especially since the last one was shorter than I wanted it to be. Like a lazy cat, you stretched your arms over your head and yawned, blinking your eyes sleepily. The day was warm and pleasant, and you were lounging on the couch in the living room, finding it difficult to do much in that moment. Your moms and Liz had gone out shopping, looking for some new items for your sister to take back and decorate her college dorm with. They asked if you wanted to go with them, but you declined. For you, today was all about relaxation. Cove had dropped by to spend some time with you, content to join in with doing nothing. That's when you know you found the one, when they can just sit there and stare at a wall with you, and you're both fine with that. Yeah, I was kind of joking about the tea earlier, like needing more of it, but actually I think I might. But I'm going to try to hold out until I'm done with the session. Anyway, the two of you had been chatting idly as you lazed around, talking about the other things you had planned for the summer. Couch cuddling's cute and all, but you were stretched out across him as he sat on the couch. You had your feet propped up on one of the armrests and used Cove as a comfy cushion beneath your head, totally settled in. Cove gently wound his fingers through your hair as you rested on his legs, equally at ease. The day dragged on, and you found yourself yawning more and more often between conversations. You'd almost dozed off completely when suddenly a buzz rang out, disturbing the silence. Your phone was on its charger in the kitchen, so it couldn't have been that. Cove pulled his own phone from his back pocket and checked the screen. His movement had jostled you, so you tried to readjust your position to get it right again.
Oh.
It's my mom. Cove waved his phone in the air, giving you a small smile. I'm gonna take this, so I'll be right back. Boo! I don't want to move! How dare you remove me from my comfy position? He carefully nudged you to move. You made a small noise. Come on, Joy, I have to take this. He poked you again, and finally, with a groan, you relented and let him get up. He got to his feet and stretched out, answering the call and holding the phone to his ear as he headed off. Hey, Mom, what's up? Tell her I said hi! Okay, so a little bit of information about my real relationship. Anytime I'm on the phone with my parents, which is fairly rare, the wife always, says, tell your mom I said hi, because my mom doesn't like her. And yeah. I have nothing else to say about that. It's funny to both of us. He turned to give you a nod, smiling as he walked backwards towards the door. The lock clicked behind him as he exited the house, and you sank back into the cushions, idly trying to decide what to do next. After electing to grab your own phone from its charger, you resumed your position on the couch, tapping away at the screen. Your mind drifted away from thoughts of Cove and his phone call, with all the many ways your device could distract you. The modern millennial's response to boredom. It was an effective enough way to kill time, and you had managed to do various little things when the door opened again and Cove returned. He gave you a smile as he approached, so you figured the conversation couldn't have gone too bad. You watched as Cove strolled over to where you were still sitting. He crossed his arms against the top corner of the couch, resting on them while bending forward to lightly kiss the top of your head. Aww.
Hey.
I'm back. You tilted your head and gave him a small kiss. He met your lips with his, closing his eyes and letting you kiss him longer than the one he had just given prior. So, good or bad news? He turned his head suddenly, running a hand through his hair and letting out an exasperated breath. He seemed nervous, but you couldn't imagine why.
Fine.
It's fine. Not anything to worry about. That's a response. You raised an eyebrow at his tone, moving your head to the side to try and meet his eye. That doesn't explain what's going on. He shrugged and gave you a tight smile, trying to play whatever it actually was off as unimportant. There's nothing going on, just stuff I can deal with later, some other time. That's always a bad sign. He was transparently avoiding the truth, and you stared back at him seriously, an indication that you weren't going to ignore what he was doing. Eventually, he broke beneath your stare, hanging his head in his hands and groaning. I need to make another trip to my mom's place. There's some stuff out there that I'm gonna use, so I'll have to go pick it up. It wouldn't make sense to ship it, and I couldn't bring the stuff back with me last time since I flew. Oh. Suddenly you understood what the phone conversation had been about. Ko was going to drive to his mom's house in Nevada. When will you go? Mom thinks it would be best to do it now while I'm still kind of free, but... He pouted, giving you an unhappy look, and you could see the prospect was already taking a toll on him. I don't want to. I was just there, and for even longer than usual. Why do I have to leave, right now, when it's our last summer like this? You shook your head affectionately. He was always dramatic. Looking up again, you met his bright aquamarine eyes, finding a sad smile tugging on his lips.
Oh.
Suddenly his eyebrows jumped, and his eyes lit up like a lamp. You could come with me. Hey! The boy's got a brain! What? You should come with me. I mean, I get the two of us live next door to each other, and my mom lives in another state. My trips there are usually to spend time with her, just the two of us. But this time it won't be like that. All I'm gonna do is drive over, stay for a night, and then pack up the car in the morning and turn around again. Most of the time will be spent in the car, so it'd be good to have another person there. Plus, you'd have the chance to see my mom again and her place. Maybe we could even find something cool to break at on the way. That's an interesting phrasing. He couldn't stop yourself from laughing at his enthusiasm. He blushed a little, reining himself in.
Please?
I just feel like it could be fun. Please, could you think about it? I'd love to. When do we leave? I'll have to let my moms know, but as long as we've got nothing else important on the days we pick, there's no reason I wouldn't be able to go. He grinned from ear to ear, thrilled by the news. He put both his hands on your cheeks, kissing your face all over. Aww! Cute. Then he wrapped his arms around your neck, letting out a happy sigh.
I'm so glad.
This is so great. I'll call my mom back and let her know right now. You spent some time together going over your schedules and making plans for when you could take the trip. You needed to fit it in around both of your work schedules, which took a bit of doing, but came together in the end. Luckily, it was only a 2-day trip, so finding a couple free days in a row wasn't impossible. I wish I had 2 days off together. It wasn't long before the dates were finally set and all the plans were made. You were excited for the trip. A short trip sounded like the perfect way to spend some time. You could listen to music, eat snacks, and enjoy the open road. No matter what you thought about things, the morning when you were due to leave arrived. It was cooler than usual, the sun barely peeking over the tops of the houses. You stood outside your house, on the footpath near the road, waiting for Cove. You were feeling refreshed after a good night's sleep and an early wake-up. With your traveling bag clutched in one hand, you watched as Cove finished packing up his car. He had organized all sorts of things, water bottles, snacks, and who knows what else. Cove insisted he had everything under control and didn't need any help. At least you could rest easy, knowing that it was all taken care of. As you waited, you glanced over Cove's car. You knew it well. It used to belong to Mr. Holden, and when Cove had learned to drive, it passed to him. His dad had taken the opportunity to get a newer one. Yeah, same, actually. I, for a while was driving my dad's, old Ranger. Beautiful truck. Beautiful truck. Because, he wanted to get himself a newer vehicle. Ultimately left the Ranger there, but kind of wish I had taken it with me. It was pretty old at this point, but had served both of them well so far. You just hoped it had enough life left in it to survive a trip as long as the one you were embarking on. The slam of a door closing made you jump. You snapped back to focus and saw Cove was walking towards you. He dusted his hands off on his pants and tilted his head towards the car. That's it. Ready to go? Yeah, I'm ready. He smiled and stepped aside, giving you space to situate your own bag where you wanted it. Once everything was safely inside, he glanced back at you.
All right.
We should get started. It's gonna be a ways to go. You hugged him. He seemed surprised, but he chuckled and returned the gesture. It couldn't last for long, though. Time was of the essence. The two of you climbed into the car and buckled up, Cove in the driver's seat and you sitting shotgun. His eyes moved to you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for coming on this trip with me. Hey, I'm doing this for me too. It'll be fun. After checking the mirrors and starting the engine, you pulled out of the driveway and the trip began. With a small sigh, you got cozy in your seat and watched the familiar houses in your neighborhood pass by. Cove reached over and turned on the radio. A crackle of static mixed with the old snippets of song filled the car as he flipped through the stations. Mr. Holden's car was in good condition, but it was, well, older. There was no way to plug in a phone to play music, so the radio had to do. Eventually he settled on the classic rock station before sitting back and resting both hands on the wheel. You know what? At least he has a radio. Chad, my dad's truck, did not have a radio. Does not have a radio. It has not had a radio in years. And that is all the complaining I'm going to do about that. Is this okay? You nodded. He smiled, happy with the reaction. Time flew by, and with it, the scenery outside your window became more and more unfamiliar. Neither of you spoke for a good long while, but the quiet was comfortable. You had become all too used to each other's company over the years. Eventually, Cove broke the silence, clearing his throat softly before he spoke. It's been too long since you and I have spent time with my mom. I know she still comes to the neighborhood sometimes, but it's not even once a year. I'm always going to hers. I'm happy the two of us are doing this. Yeah, me too. Your elbow resting on the windowsill, you gazed out at a world that was slowly coming to life as the morning rolled on by. The sun climbed higher in the sky. Luckily, the sunbeams weren't going right in your eyes. Hey, do you mind reaching back for me? Cove gave you a sidelong glance as he drove, indicating with a nod of his head and a tiny smile. I want some chips. The salt and vinegar ones. Boy has taste. That's a great flavor.
Right?
Eat whatever you want too. I bought a bunch of everything. Stretching out on the seatbelt to give yourself space, you twisted in your spot and reached into the bag holding the snacks. It took a bit of effort to sort through the collection of goodies stuffed inside, but eventually the bag of treats crinkled beneath your fingers as you pulled them out and sat back in your seat. Here. Thanks. Do you mind opening it? His eyes lit up at the prospect of the snacks and you shook your head in amusement, popping the top of the bag. Want me to feed them to you? His eyes widened, the hint of a blush creeping over his cheeks, but he steadfastly continued to face the road. Good. Do not remove your eyes from the road, ever. No, that's okay. Can you just pour a few into my hand? Yeah, sure. Thanks. Cove held out one outstretched hand. You did your best to have the chips fall into his palm, but some did end up on the floor. No! That's what we were trying to avoid! After that, you rolled up the top of the bag and stowed the chips safely in the back again. When you turned to the front, it was to find Cove crushing the fistful of chips into his mouth, crunching loudly. This child. He wiped his hands on his pants absent-mindedly before gripping the wheel and spilling crumbs all over the place. Boy! Boy! Stop! Cease and desist! No! Ah! Okay, every fiber of my being screams against this. Don't be this person, please! Since there is no response that is just guttural screeching, you're like a little kid. He snorted and pulled a hand from the wheel once more to flick the salty residue from his fingers at you. No! Gross! Why? Go! Why? Why are you like this? With a gasp, you raised an arm to defend yourself. You shook your head at the mess of crumbs that fell from his mouth as he chuckled. See what I mean? The hours drifted by much the same way as that, with the two of you snacking and chatting as the day stretched on. It was fairly calm and quiet, traveling along the open road, and you found little in the way of interruptions. At one point, you passed a Welcome to Nevada sign, and Cove gave a tiny cheer. He was in disbelief that the two of you were seriously all the way in another state like this. Eventually, you had to stop for gas and made a detour at a small diner to grab a proper meal that didn't consist of chips and candy. Yeah, man cannot live on chips and candy alone. Sad but true. After refueling both the car and your stomachs, the drive was back on, just as the sun began dipping beneath the horizon and bathing the sky in a wash of orange light. Cove informed you that there wasn't too much longer left to go. You were almost there. And I think we're gonna cut it there, because I am approaching time. I will decide the driving situation in the next one. But I feel like we're getting really close to the end of this now. Because I imagine I'll finish this step in the next episode and maybe start the very end of the summer. The last end of the last summer. I love this game so much. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching up to this point, and I hope to see you again in the next episode.